Hey everybody, what's going on? It's kind of funny how some of these things work out. I was doing prep for today's video and going into yesterday, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to talk about today. And then Kent Hughes makes a deal at 5 p.m. Eastern time, sending Shea Weber to the Vegas Golden Knights for Evgenii Dadonov. And there's a lot to break down with this deal and some things that could come from it as well for the Montreal Canadiens' future. Now, first off, this is an interesting move because some people are going to ask the question, why did the Montreal Canadiens have to move Shea Weber's contract knowing very well that he'll never play a hockey game in the NHL ever again? And that's because it's not a good idea in terms of management to be operating in LTIR space. It doesn't do the franchise any good. And now there's a possibility with this deal that the Montreal Canadiens will no longer have to operate in LTIR this season. But a lot of that's going to depend on what happens with Carey Price. Who knows the health of the rest of this roster? But Carey Price could be a key in that, and it'll be an interesting situation to follow. But Shea Weber moving this contract allows the Montreal Canadiens to have more cap flexibility moving forward. There were still 4 years remaining on the Shea Weber contract, and although there wasn't a lot of real dollars remaining in that deal, this is a valuable move for the Montreal Canadiens in terms of how they can manage their cap moving forward. I think one thing that was very evident with this deal is that the Montreal Canadiens actually got a very good return. They got a very solid middle six forward, one that definitely will have value on the NHL's trade market when that time comes later in this season. It's hard to say that the Montreal Canadiens will be this poor again, but it's likely they'll be sellers at the next trade deadline, and Dadonov could be a piece that they get a significant asset for, depending on how he suits in their lineup and how he fits elsewhere on this roster. Let's say that the Montreal Canadiens decide to play Dadonov with Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki on the top line, and he ends up putting up a lot of points. This is the type of player that can be valuable come the trade deadline, especially if the Montreal Canadiens decide to be able to retain some of that contract. It's a $5 million cap hit at the moment, $6.5 million in real money, which the Montreal Canadiens were happy to take on. This is the type of organization that can do moves like that. But really, this is a very valuable asset that the Montreal Canadiens can have moving forward. And I think it's one that doesn't go unnoticed, because if you look at other teams moving these long-term injury reserve contracts, like the Dallas Stars did, and like the Winnipeg Jets and Arizona Coyotes deal earlier at the trade deadline this season, the Montreal Canadiens didn't have to pay anything to get it done. They actually got an asset in return, which means this was really a masterclass by Kent Hughes, just really smart asset management, and he made a really solid deal once again. So it's hard to say that the Montreal Canadiens aren't in great hands right now in terms of their management. Now, Ken Hughes spoke to the media yesterday after the trade was announced, and one thing that really stood out was he actually took the time to mention the Josh Anderson trade rumors, and I think that's a very smart thing. Ken Hughes is clearly negotiating through the media here, and that has its faults in different ways, but this is a very smart way to do things. He did it in the past with Tyler Toffoli and Artturi Lehkonen, and the writing could be on the wall for Josh Anderson in Montreal. You heard very similar things when he spoke about Lehkonen and spoke about Toffoli, saying these are guys we want to keep around. They don't have any pressure to move them. But Josh Anderson's name is something that is generating a lot of chatter around the National Hockey League right now, and it sounds like the Montreal Canadiens could be getting a hefty return if they do decide to move him, and I think that's something that will happen in order to create some cap flexibility for this team. Look, Josh Anderson is a very effective forward in the National Hockey League, but he's making $5.75 million for the next 5 or so seasons, and that's not something that's going to fit well into the Canadiens' cap structure. And I think they would be wise to get a big return for Anderson, depending on what that return could be. And if they do this type of move, they can invest dollars elsewhere on the blue line or even up front to kind of find that fit for Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki. It's clear that Josh Anderson just doesn't have the consistency to be part of this Montreal Canadiens future. And if they can get that big return that they're looking for him, I think it's a no-brainer decision to move Josh Anderson. Obviously, there's very few players in the NHL like Josh Anderson, but the Canadiens simply need more cap flexibility moving forward, and moving a player like Anderson for a big return when he's locked in long term and avoiding something that could be a dangerous contract down the road would be smart asset management by Kent Hughes. That's it for me today from Cook's Corner. As always, let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts were on the Shea Weber deal, and if you think Josh Anderson has a future with the Montreal Canadiens. I'm Zach Cook. We'll see you later.